This is a first look at the Mizuno Wave Rider 30. We're going to go ahead and get it on foot today here in the store at Mountain Running Company, and we're going to talk about all the big updates that are the Mizuno Wave Rider 30, from the P-Bax plate that is in it now to the higher stack height and the change and drop. Let's go ahead and get this on foot. So with the Mizuno Wave Rider 30, I think Mizuno is doing a lot of really good things. We're adding a little bit of stack here. So for a daily trainer being up at 42.5 millimeters, at a $150 price point is really impressive, especially considering we're adding a dual density foam. So we have a top layer of the Energy Next, which is a supercritical foam, going to be a little bit softer, and then a standard EVA down below. That is really impressive because that's a lot of tech coming into a shoe at a very reasonable price point. We're also coming in at 9.4 ounces for men and 8.1 for women's, which is a really good weight to be targeting given what else is in this segment when we're talking about things like the Mountain Coast C1, right in that range, the Salomon Aeroglide, a little bit lighter, but right in that range. The New Balance 1080, these are all shoes that are above that $150 price point with similar stack. A couple of them have dual density foam, and we're getting a lot out of this shoe. One of the other things that might be surprising, and we'll get it on foot here in just a second, but we've widened out the toe box, which is not historically a Mizuno thing to do. Mizuno tended to be on the more narrow side, and this should be an interesting update for the width here. And the last thing before I put it on my foot and get an initial fit and feel is we now have a full-length wave plate. So you may have remembered the wave plate that was exposed that you could kind of see on the heel. And that's something Mizuno did for a really, really long time, actually. But that was just a partial shank. That wasn't a full-length plate. And while this isn't like a carbon plate or anything like that, it is going to help stiffen the shoe, and it's going to help add a little bit of energy return as we're running. We don't have a very aggressive geometry here, and I think that's going to make it pretty fun to run in. I'm super hopeful that there's enough squish. I've heard a lot of folks talking about it being a more firm option. And while I don't love firm, if it's firm with really good response and feels lively, I think it's much more fun. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get this on foot here. We're gonna undo the laces. We are gonna go for our size 12 here. We've got this gusseted tongue in the shoe here, which should make us have a really nice lockdown feel. So tightening this up, it feels like 12 is going to be right. So for those of you who maybe watch the channel regularly, I usually float around a 12, sometimes a 12 and a half, depending on the shoe. And 12 so far feels pretty nice in here. I'll give you a close up as to where I'm sitting in the shoe right now. Just tightening up this other side. Lockdown initially feels pretty good, even without being like super, super specific on this. Let's lock this down. And as always, we'll get a fit and feel test here real quick. Then I'll run back to the store and see what my just very first initial impressions are with the shoe. Let's get that squish test. All right, so for the squish, it doesn't feel crazy. It feels like a daily trainer, which is the category we're trying to fall into, but just doesn't feel tremendously squishy. Seeing as I'm pushing down this gap opening up, I think I may end up runners looping it for the full review. I just don't love when I see a shoe pushing out right here. However, doing this last loop for the runners loop should be entirely fine. And another important thing to check here is the length. I've got about 3/4 of a thumb here, you can see. For a size 12 for me, that's really good. This is about my favorite fit for a shoe, so great job on that front. If you're used to being between sizes, I would say probably on that lower size for you. Okay, so with this on foot, we're gonna run to the back of the store, just get our very first impressions on how it feels on foot. Let's do it. Just on that first one, we'll do it one more time. Just on that first little bit, it feels like there's plenty of cushion in the heel, which is nice. So I'm generally a little bit of a heel striker, especially slower. Like I'm not getting up to pace here, but a little bit easier on the heel. I like that squish and roll feel. And then the roll feel is the other pieces. It feels like it transitioned pretty nicely to that forefoot. It's a little firm. So if you like a firm daily trainer, if you like a Brooks Ghost, this feels like maybe a little bit enhanced version of a Ghost with a smidge lower of a drop. I'm going to run back and forth one more time. That's just pretty good. That feels really nice. If you're looking for an absolute crazy super shoe, maybe not that category, also not that price point, but it's also a really nice feeling option for what I think will be a daily trainer. When I do my full review, we'll break down the 10-minute pace, this 8:30 pace, and something under 7-minute pace, just depending on what this gives me. Real quick, let's take a look at the wall though and see what this might compare against and how you may end up looking at this in your own rotation. So finishing up with this here, let's talk through value, or at least my perceived value this far in, and then how this stacks up against some of the shoes in this category. So this is an interesting one to try and position on the wall. Because this is a higher stack height shoe, my initial gut reaction is to try and compare it against a Salomon Aeroglide or a New Balance 1080 or an Asics Nimbus. But then in the price point, I'm really comparing more against a Brooks Ghost, a New Balance 880, something like a Saucony Ride. And I think this is doing a great job competing in that $150 category. It has things that sets it apart. So it has a higher stack height than a Ghost. It has a full length P-Bax plate, which is not overly aggressive again, but will enhance an experience for some daily miles. Then when I'm comparing against these higher stack height shoes like the Aeroglide, we're at the same stack with a lower price point, which again is really nice. And when we're comparing high cushion daily trainers, Aeroglide can do a lot of things. The 1080 lives more in that daily category. It's more of a conversation. Do you like a firm ride like the Wave Rider, or do you want a softer ride like the 1080? And that's going to come down more to personal preference. I think this is certainly making a point to have a place on our wall. Now, one category I don't think it is slotting into is the Saucony Endorphin Azura, the Evo SL, the New Balance Rebel. Those all feel like they're shifting towards that almost threshold racer kind of shoe with daily properties. This feels like it fits more into the daily world. I think the weight is the big differentiator there. Those that I just named are all a lot lighter and have pretty much all race foam. That's not what we have here, but that's okay because they serve different purposes. I don't wear an Evo SL every day. It just doesn't make sense to me. I could wear the Wave Rider every day. I could wear a Ghost every day. That's the kind of category. I think this is going to be able to eat up some miles with this dual density foam. That's part of the reason I like the Mount to Coast C1 so much, is we have a top layer of really peppy foam with a bottom layer of foam that's going to be more durable. So I think we're doing a ton of things right here. I'm super excited to see how this fits in the market, and really, really excited to see how it feels when we go out and run later today for a full review. If you already know this is a shoe that you want, you can use code JSYT10, that should be right here, on mountainrunningcompany.com in the checkout page and save 10%. And hopefully get yourself a shoe that feels really good. Again, true to size for the sizing, and a really good daily trainer at a really reasonable price. If you have any questions, I am more than happy to help. I like talking about this stuff, clearly. So let me know. What are your questions down below? With that said, I hope you guys all have a great day. Do something good for your body. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.